Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, and what a week it has been. I hope you made it through okay. So, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, just what was it about languishing at 14% in the national polls that led you to cancel 4 mayoral elections?
There are various arrangements being put in place to ensure all the elections could take place at the right time, depending on the configurations of the council and other arrangements.
Essex, Hampshire and the Solent, Sussex and Brighton, Norfolk and Suffolk, well, they're all set now to have their ability to express their democratic will neutered, kicked into the long grass, told to wait until 2028. Now the Labour government will offer a mealy-mouthed excuse that these councils need more time for reorganisation for the government's devolution plans to be realised. But Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the British people are not fools. The people want to cast judgment on this high tax, high welfare, mass immigration doom loop that you have consigned this country to. The Labour Party finds itself squeezed by both Reform and the Greens, and instead of facing the music, instead of facing the British people, they have ducked accountability in yet another unprecedented assault on our democracy. I've thought for a long time that this Labour government has struggled with a democratic deficit. Think of ending the inheritance tax exemption for farmers. An MP from a rural seat was suspended for voting against a policy that was never even in Labour's manifesto to begin with. Or think about some of the other things that we've witnessed under this government, like the giveaway of the Chagos Islands, or the decision to not raise taxes on working people in the budget, only to introduce £70 billion of tax raises since coming into power. These policies were omitted from the Labour manifesto. They weren't even put before the British people. And because of the hostility this Labour government has engendered across the country, people are making it clear that they wish to have their voices heard. But I think the Labour government, to be frank, is running scared. Consider this. This strikes at something more sinister in this country. When you observe that this government is taking back the rights to have trial by jury, this is a government that is perfectly willing to roll back an inalienable right dating back to Magna Carta. Think of the rollout of digital ID and the recent news that live facial recognition is about to come to every town centre. I think this is all evidence of a deeply authoritarian streak within this Labour government. By-elections and council elections are your ability, the people's ability, in part to either signal your approval of the government or vent your frustration at what is happening in Westminster. Well, Labour has decided that it couldn't really care less about your opinions. But Prime Minister Keir Starmer, you can only put off the judgment of the people for so long. I don't think it can be a coincidence that all 4 of these scrap mayoral contests have been forecast by independent pollsters to be won by Reform were those elections to be taken place. To compound this anti-democratic move, I also think it can't be a coincidence that by the time these delayed elections are staged, it could have another voting system in place. Out goes first past the post. In comes a supplementary vote system that is more supportive of left-wing parties. The Labour government might have contempt for the voters, but it is nothing compared to the contempt that many voters have for this Prime Minister. If Keir Starmer thinks that by running away from accountability, running away from the people, that they will simply forget the anger they have for this already tired government, then Labour is massively underestimating the British people. Their judgment is going to come, and I think the end of this government will also come in the not-too-distant future. As always, I'd like to hear your views. You can reach us at gbnews.com/your say. Of course, you can find us on X at gbnews.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
I'm going to get reaction now from my panel, political commentator Ellie Hodges and former Labour advisor Stella Santakiru. Stella, let me start with you. Labour, running scared of democracy?
Absolutely not. They are absolutely creating the devolution that they have always promised that they were going to do, which no other party wanted to do to begin with. If they were running scared for democracy, then tell me, why have they pledged to give hundreds of millions of pounds in unring-fenced funding to these local to these institutions before a single vote has been cast in any of them?
I don't think people want money. They want the opportunity to participate in democracy. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's purely a coincidence that the elections have been cancelled in areas that, according to Electoral Calculus, an independent pollster, they say all of those mayoral elections would have likely been won by the Reform Party?
No, because the reason why the elections are postponed is because these institutions have not had enough time to be formed. So George Osborne and David Cameron, when they were in power, they also tried to devolve to to create some new mayoral authorities, and their plans completely fall through because they hadn't thought through how exactly the local government arrangements were going to work out. So it is exactly these mistakes that Labour is trying to prevent by giving them enough time. And it is actually a lot of these areas themselves ask the government to delay the elections so that both they can save money and so that they can have a better turnout, which if Reform is so confident that they're going to win them, then that should be good for them, and it is not going to change.
Ellie Hodges.
Just quickly on that point, if that is the reason why they have delayed them, why have they waited so long when millions of pounds have gone into campaigning, volunteers have gave up their time, knocking on doors, handing out leaflets? Surely they could let people know a bit sooner.
Well, the reason why they have delayed is because they have been told by the local governments there that there hasn't been enough time for their institutions to be probably
curious timing. Let me just put this to you. What about this accusation, this charge from lots of people this week, that here we have something else, not in Labour's manifesto. We've had digital ID, we've had tax rises, we've had the Chagos deal, we've now had scrapping jury trials. None of this stuff was in the Labour manifesto, yet here it is being wheeled out by a government that we also discovered this week is on 14% in the national polls. Where is democracy in all of this?
Are you suggesting that Margaret Thatcher should have just resigned during the poll tax when her popularity was down? Is this what you're suggesting?
What I'm saying is there is a steady stream of policies, tax rises, new legislation that is being imposed on the British people despite never having been in a manifesto. I'm not talking about past governments. I'm asking you as a Labour supporter, do you not see that there is something deeply sinister going on in this country?
Are you suggesting that the government cannot implement any policies which are not found in the manifesto?
Yeah, there is a long-held convention.
No, there is no
a
such
long-held
convention
that policies in the manifesto are brought before the people.
And that the House of Lords cannot... The Salisbury Convention says that any policy that is in the manifesto, the House of Lords should not vote against. That is what the convention says. It does not say that the government's hands are tied, no matter the circumstances, and that they cannot introduce new policies. This is absolute nonsense.
No, hang on a second. Ellie Hodges, Labour 14%. Do you actually see a future here for this government? How do you see things unravelling over the next little while? Because we've had the big budget, we had those big tax rises, we've had, since then, polling showing that Labour is down again. They were already on 16% before the budget. They're now down to 14%. The Greens have replaced Labour in the national polls. Not really happened before what we're seeing in the polling. I mean, how long do you think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and this Labour government actually have?
Well, I think Labour governments historically are known for clinging on to power for as long as possible. So I don't actually think that they will resign. But in this case, I think it's absolutely catastrophic that it's happened twice now. They've cancelled these elections twice. So I think the people that are living in these areas have every right to be furious about the fact that they will feel like the government can just, at a click of a fingers, take away their chance to vote.
And do you think...
They never voted before on these new mayoral elections.
Well, I'm sure when they do get a chance, they're going to have their views.
Yeah, but
their views known. But
it's not like they had a mayor and then suddenly they don't have one. So,
but you know, still
they're still going to feel that they've had 2 chances to vote. That hasn't actually.
It's very interesting that you say that, Ellie. I wonder whether you are aware of Nigel Farage's views on devolution more generally and reforms devolutions policies on devolution more generally, because I find it really very opportunistic and convenient, both on these and on jury trials and on a lot of other issues, which reform has found the opportunity to jump into and pretend that they cared about them before. I really do not know whether having local mayors and devolution was very high on Nigel Farage's agenda before.
I think fundamentally what separates reform from the established parties is the principle that power should lie with the people, not with international elites. Keir Starmer said it himself. He prefers Davos to Westminster.
Like the crypto international elites that are giving millions, that have pledged to give millions of pounds to Nigel Farage, like these ones.
Well, this party, every single political party has funders who give different donations of different sizes. Do you think ultimately, though, Reform is the party that is going to end up benefiting from this? You look across Europe, whenever we've had grand coalitions, whenever we've had attempts to shut out populist outsiders, it's always backfired. Those parties have only ever become stronger.
Labour is not trying to shut out anyone, and if anything, the fact that they are the government who created these majorities and who, as I said, have already committed hundreds of millions of unrestricted, not ring-fenced funds before they know who is going to be elected, just shows you that they trust the process and it's not about party politics.
Ellie, the real winner in all of this is going to be Nigel Farage, isn't it?
Absolutely. He will use this to his advantage again. And I think that the whole thing about convenience, I think it is quite convenient, the fact that Reform would be likely to have won every single one of those elections. So I think that it's very convenient. I understand what you're saying, but I think it's just too convenient.
We also have Reform this week on 32% in the national polls, number one. It seems as though Reform support has been stabilising after the budget, about 10 points clear of the Conservatives and Labour. Farage has been absolutely, shooting from, all guns blazing this week, taking on the BBC, talking about the migration issue. I mean, do you think essentially now Reform are where they need to be, or do you think they need to keep going further in the polls?
I think they still need to go further in the polls. They're at a very comfortable position now, but I don't think you should ever get too comfortable. That would be my response. And
Stella, what is the response from Labour to Reform?
In terms of what? I thought that the topic was about the elections being postponed.
But there's no serious response coming from the Labour government to the rise of Reform in the polling. We've had Morgan McSweeney this week, or we've had the Labour government issuing emails saying that we should be focusing on what happened or did not happen when Nigel Farage was at school. There doesn't seem to be a response to what Reform is saying in terms of the issues.
A response in terms of what that they're saying that has changed. They haven't made, when they make a serious statement, I'm sure there could be one, but I don't see why the government should be giving a running commentary on how well or badly Nigel Farage is doing on the polls.
Why is Keir Starmer mentioning Nigel Farage at every Prime Minister's questions?
Then there is a response.
But it's not a serious one. The argument seems to be that this is about reforms, associations or whatever with things that happened 10, 20 years ago. We saw last night a big national debate, we'll come on to it later in the show, about illegal migration, about mass migration, the number one issue in the country. Keir Starmer so far said nothing about that whatsoever, and the only option that people have here to express their views is being taken away from them.
I'm pretty sure that Keir Starmer has spoken plenty about immigration, and so has Sabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. Look, Matt, if you want to ask me something about Labour's policy, I'm happy to respond to that. But I cannot really ameliorate any hurt feelings you might have about how high Nigel Farage is in terms of importance on the Prime Minister's agenda. I happen to not advise him.
But my point being, by managing the public, managing voters, shutting out their opportunity to participate in democracy, there is not a serious response from Labour to reform. This is tinkering with democracy. It's not actually responding to the reasons why. Look, if Keir Starmer was serious about shutting down reform, he would be having those elections and he would be taking the intellectual argument to reform. He'd be saying, here's how I'm going to solve the border crisis. Here's how I'm going to lower migration. Here's how I'm going to end soft on crime policies. Here's how I'm going to reduce the tax burden. Here's how I'm going to reduce electricity prices. But he's not serious.
He has been doing all of that.
He's
literally slashed down electricity prices. He has literally made very stringent changes to the immigration system that the Conservative government never managed to do. Now, you said about these elections, why does he not give the public the option? Well, to begin with, as I said, there would be no such elections if it wasn't for the Labour Party. These are positions, these are local authorities created by the Labour Party, by the Labour government. They are not shutting out voters. The elections will take place alongside other elections to make sure that the turnout is higher and that we save money.
Just briefly before we move on, Ellie, do you think Labour's response this week to Nigel Farage and reform has been serious?
No, not at all. I still don't think they're taking them seriously at all. And they should be, because they're at the top of the polls and they're their main competition.
Yeah, exactly. Well, coming up, the BBC